Hello, and welcome to this installment of our Learning Commons HESI Grammar Review series, Run-On Sentences. In this video, I will discuss what a run-on sentence is, how to fix one, and how the HESI might include this type of error in a test question. So let's get started. Let's start by focusing on what a run-on sentence is. A run-on sentence occurs when two complete sentences are joined without a word or appropriate punctuation between them. For example, let's take a look at the following sentence. Jared excels on the track, swim, soccer, and basketball teams. He is a very talented athlete. This sentence is an example of one type of run-on sentence. The following complete sentences have been fused together to become one. Jared excels on the track, swim, soccer, and basketball teams, and he is a very talented athlete. This type of run-on sentence is fairly easy to spot. Both complete sentences or independent clauses contain a subject and a verb, as well as a complete thought. Now, you just heard me use the term independent clause. When English teachers discuss complete versus incomplete sentences, they refer to complete sentences sometimes as independent clauses. An independent clause is a clause that can stand on its own. It's independent. It doesn't need any help to convey its meaning. This is in contrast to a dependent clause. A dependent clause cannot stand on its own. It requires a subject, a verb, and/or additional information to make it a complete sentence. Let's look at the following independent clause from our previous example. Jared excels on the track, swim, soccer, and basketball teams. The subject of this sentence is Jared. He is the one performing the action. The verb is excels. What does Jared do? He excels. But in what? The rest of the sentence names the sports in which Jared excels. So the sentence presents a complete thought. Two independent clauses cannot share the same space in a sentence unless appropriate measures are taken to separate them. So, what can you do to fix a run-on sentence? There are three ways that you can fix a run-on sentence, and the HESI might choose any one of them. First, you could separate both independent clauses, or complete sentences, with a period. Or, if both clauses are closely related, you could separate them with a semicolon. Finally, you might choose to use a comma and a coordinated conjunction for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, to separate both independent clauses. Let's look at these fixes one by one. Now, one of the easiest ways to fix a run-on is to separate the two independent clauses with a period. The following sentence is a run-on. I studied my notes and did well on my first AMH 2020 exam. Knowing how to take good notes is an essential skill in college. Both I studied my notes and did well on my first AMH 2020 exam and knowing how to take good notes is an essential skill in college are complete sentences. This error is easily fixed by inserting a period between the two sentences. I studied my notes and did well on my first AMH 2020 exam. Period. Knowing how to take good notes is an essential skill in college. Period. Writers do want to vary their sentence variety and length, so this fix is not always the best option when writing. However, as far as the HESI is concerned, this option would be one way to fix the issue and create two grammatically correct sentences. Another way to fix a run-on is by separating both independent clauses with a semicolon. However, this option works only if both independent clauses are closely related in thought. For example, take the following sentence. Michael usually declines invitations to parties. He is very shy. Is this sentence grammatically correct? No. There are two independent clauses in this sentence. Michael usually declines invitations to parties, and he is very shy. Since these two independent clauses are closely related in thought, they can be separated by using a semicolon. The final way that you can correct a run-on is by separating both independent clauses with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Coordinating conjunctions connect words or groups of words of equal importance. To correct a run-on, you need to separate two independent clauses, two groups of words of equal importance. To remember the different coordinating conjunctions, use the mnemonic device fanboys. Fanboys will help you remember the coordinating conjunctions: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. Fanboys. Let's take a closer look. The following example, a trip to New York can be exciting, it can also cost a fortune, is a run-on sentence. It contains two independent clauses. A trip to New York can be exciting, and it can also cost a fortune. To join them, we can simply add a comma and an appropriate coordinating conjunction. A trip to New York can be exciting, but it can also cost a fortune. Using a comma followed by a coordinating conjunction is one of the ways that the HESI might present a grammatically correct option. However, it might also present two other options. Two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction with no comma. This would still form a run-on sentence. You need that comma between the two independent clauses and before the coordinating conjunction. Or it might have two independent clauses joined by a comma with no coordinating conjunction. This is also an error. Many times students feel that one way to fix a run-on sentence is to place a comma between the two complete sentences. Usually writers do this when the two independent clauses are closely related in thought. Unfortunately, this creates another type of sentence error, a comma splice. Let's look at the following example. Jared excels on the track, swim, soccer, and basketball teams, comma, he is a very talented athlete. Period. Some students feel a comma should be at the end, should be added after teams because they paused at that point in the sentence. Perhaps a teacher told them long ago, whenever you pause, place a comma. Unfortunately, that's a problematic way to remember where to place commas, because you don't always pause where commas need to be placed, and you sometimes pause where commas are not needed. Knowing comma placement rules is the best way to understand where commas should and should not be placed. In this case, the reader might pause after teams because the first sentence ends and a new sentence begins. Fortunately, since a comma splice is a type of run-on sentence, you can fix both a comma splice and a run-on in the same ways, by separating both independent clauses with a period, a semicolon, or a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Now that we've discussed what a run-on sentence is and how to correct one, let's try a few practice questions similar to those you might see on the HESI. For this question, please select the option that is grammatically correct. You might want to pause the video so that you have time to carefully examine each option and select one. Now, let's examine how we might approach a question like this. I would read all options and attempt to determine which contain grammatical errors. If they contain grammatical errors, then they're out, right? The correct option is going to be the sentence without grammatical errors. So option A has a period after the child cried. That's an independent clause. So far, so good. Next, clutching his blanket, he sobbed throughout the night. That's an independent clause, and there's a comma after the introductory element, period at the end. No grammar errors that I noticed right off the bat. This option looks promising. Option B has no comma between the two independent clauses, which creates a run-on. Even if you feel that clutching his blanket might be a part of the first clause, a comma is used to separate the two clauses. That creates a comma splice, which is also a run-on, which is a grammatical error, so B is out. Option C has a comma between the two independent clauses. This creates a comma splice, which is a grammatical error, so C is out. And option D has joined the two independent clauses with a conjunction. However, there is no comma before the conjunction, which creates a run-on, and that's a grammatical error, so D is out. Therefore, option A is the only grammatically correct option of the bunch. Now on to the next question. Select the option that is grammatically correct. Again, you might want to pause the video so that you have time to carefully examine each option and select an answer. Okay, like before, let's examine each option. Option A has two independent clauses. Marcy loved her visit to Paris, and it was her first trip outside of the United States. There is no punctuation separating these complete sentences, which creates a run-on, which is a grammatical error. So option A is out. Option B has a period separating both independent clauses. Well, this option is the best so far, so let's keep it in mind. Option C is not an independent clause. It's missing a verb. It isn't a complete thought. What did Marcy do? Who knows? This option is a sentence fragment, which is a grammatical error, so this option is also out. Option D separates both independent clauses with a comma. And you know what that does? That creates a comma splice, which is a type of run-on sentence, which is a grammatical error. Therefore, option D is out. After examining all of the options carefully, it is clear that option B is the correct choice. Well, that concludes this presentation on run-on sentences. For more information and practice on finding and correcting run-on sentences, please check out the links that follow this video on our web page. If you are a current TCC student, you can also receive more help with this skill by working with one of our specialists in the Learning Commons. If you feel that this page was helpful, please check out our additional HESI grammar videos on our test review webpage. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best on the HESI.